Number 10. Sharks. Topping off our list today of animals living in volcanoes is the deadly shark. Sharks are known for prowling almost every ocean in the world, and scientists have recently discovered that they're also hanging out inside of underwater volcanoes. This story takes us to the southwest Pacific Ocean near the Solomon Islands to a volcano named Cavachi. Its first recorded eruption was back in 1939, but it erupted as recently as January 2014. It's even considered to be one of the most active underwater volcanoes in the region, according to Forbes, and is nicknamed Cavachi's Oven after a local sea god. And even though this is an active volcano, it's also home to a unique group of sharks. These hammerhead sharks were filmed recently in 2015 swimming around inside of the volcano. This is a place where water temperatures are above normal and the acidity levels are ridiculous. How do they survive? The truth is that the sharks are not in much danger. Even in the case of an eruption, they can basically just swim away really fast without suffering any damage. Scientists have actually found that living near an underwater volcano can be beneficial, as the volcano supplies nutrients to the surrounding area and actually helps maintain the ecosystem. Because the volcano has made its own miniature habitat inside the massive ocean where food is scarce, it actually does make sense that the sharks would hang around there, hoping to get their jaws on some easy food. Number 9. Freaky lobsters. Lobsters are freaky enough as it is. If you look at a lobster and don't see a horrifying sea scorpion, I just don't know what to tell you. Lobsters are weird, but they get weirder. This story goes back 100 years to the waters around Australia. It all started on a tiny island called Lord Howe Island, when a British supply ship ran aground and dozens of black rats left the ship and began to feast on a bug native to the island, known as the land lobster. After about 30 years, the land lobster was gone. The animal was thought extinct, but then in 1964, a group of people climbing a nearby volcano called Ball's Pyramid found an insect that looked an awful lot like the legendary land lobster. But it wasn't until decades later in 2001 that researchers confirmed finding 24 of these weird black insects sliding around in the mud of the volcano. The researchers were pretty excited, as they had initially thought it was a completely new species living inside the cracks and crevices of the volcano. According to the story from USA Today, there are currently only about 30 adult land lobsters left living on Ball's Pyramid. This not only makes it an extremely rare insect because it lives on an actual volcano, but it also makes them one of the rarest insects on our planet. Currently, researchers are trying to bring the land lobster back to life. But it's so hard to get rid of those pesky rats brought over on English cargo ships hundreds of years ago. Number 8. Yeti crabs. At the very bottom of the ocean, there are hydrothermal vents that spew out extremely hot water into the icy sea above them. But it's only hot for a few seconds. After the water reaches a few feet, the temperature goes from scalding hot to freezing. And on top of that, the pressure in this area is so heavy that it could crush a normal person. Oh yeah, and there is literally no light. Nonetheless, this horrendous environment is home to something known as the Yeti crab. These hairy crustaceans were first discovered in 2005, according to the BBC, and they look exactly like the abominable snowman, only in crab form. Since the initial discovery, there have only been 5 species of Yeti crab found. But all of them live in this weird environment at the bottom of the ocean next to the hydrothermal vents. And while not your typical volcano, they are still fissures that expel heat, just like normal volcanoes. In any case, the Yeti crabs were discovered living all around the vents in the basalt rock at the bottom of the ocean. And while it may seem inhospitable to you, the water temperature down there is only about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The Yeti crabs basically live their whole life in a hot tub. They surprised researchers by draping their big hairy claws over the hot water vents like you or I would dangle our feet in the hot tub. These might be the most relaxing volcano creatures ever. Number 7. The Fanged fish. The fanged fish is one ugly mother. It's also known as the scaleless blackfish, and it's only about the size of your fingertip. But these weird little fish are proving that life can thrive literally anywhere on this planet. Just recently, an Australian research team discovered the fanged fish living inside the warm and acidic waters near some underwater volcanoes. You can tell the fanged-toothed fish right away from its translucent fangs and its tadpole-like body. But it wasn't the only creature that they found living in the area. There were lots of other fish, some of which might have been snaggle-toothed dragonfish. The team believes that all these fish are the result of larvae being swept out of ocean nurseries where Australian farmers grow fish, then thriving and growing up in the inhospitable waters around the nearby volcanoes. According to the chief scientist for the voyage, they had previously thought that when the larvae were swept out to sea from coastal estuaries, they perished. But this new discovery says that's not the case at all. The poor little babies that get swept out of the commercial fisheries have been thriving inside the waters of hot volcanoes. Number 6. Volcano worms. You might not have heard of the mud volcano. Most people think volcanoes spit out molten lava, hot ash, and all kinds of other toxic junk. But the truth is that there are lots of different kinds of volcanoes, and most of them are underwater. At the bottom of the Arctic Ocean are 5 active mud volcanoes. And just like the name implies, they spit out extremely warm mud. They also belch out methane gas. If you know anything about methane gas, you will know it's not something humans can survive breathing in. But that doesn't mean the inhospitable environment around these volcanoes doesn't support at least some kind of life. Living on these mud volcanoes are billions and billions of weird tiny worms. The worms survive without any light, and the story of their lives is pretty bizarre. They are known as Beaufort sea tube worms, and they are only about 8 centimeters long each. But they are related to annelid worms, which are found near hydrothermal vents under the ocean and can grow to be around 6 feet in length. These worms survive in completely pitch-black conditions under a lot of pressure and in water filled with toxic gases. But none of this bothers them. Without any eyes, without a stomach, and without a butt, they actually feed on these toxic gases. This is one of the most incredible discoveries ever. This creature literally survives by sucking in methane gas or hydrogen sulfide. Scientists aren't yet sure which one they actually feed on. Number 5. Volcano barnacle. We are all familiar with barnacles. But did you know that barnacles are indeed living creatures? A barnacle is a type of arthropod and is very closely related to crabs and lobsters. There are almost countless different variations of barnacles living in the ocean, with most of them living in shallow waters. However, there is something known as the pink volcano barnacle. It's a special species of barnacle that is surprisingly large and lives off the coast of California. While they don't actually live inside volcanoes, they are named because of their shape. There is no denying that these little barnacles look exactly like miniature volcanoes ready to erupt. What's really weird about the species is that they only live near California. Other than that, there isn't really much to be said about them. They are just cute little mini volcanoes growing on the side of rocks and stones under the water. Number 4. Hairy microbes. In 2014, an expedition to the Tagoro volcano near the Canary Islands resulted in the discovery of strange colonies of hairy bacteria living inside of a very inhospitable environment. This was 2 years after the volcano erupted and reshaped a massive patch of the seafloor. The researchers had to explore using a robotic submarine equipped with specialized cameras and high-tech machine arms for collecting samples. They originally thought that there would be no life considering the recent eruption, but they soon found living microbes. After genetic analysis of the samples they took, researchers discovered that the metabolic functions of the microbes enabled them to grow in hostile environments. While most organisms would be killed by the toxic hydrogen sulfide seeping out of the volcanic rocks, these weird organisms actually use it for energy. This is very similar to the worms living in the mud volcano. The scientists ended up naming the microbes Venus's hair because they look like strands of hair from the famous painting of the goddess Venus emerging from the sea. According to a researcher from the University of Delaware, none of the team are completely sure when the bacteria arrived at the volcano, but they do believe that they started colonizing the area once the temperature dropped. But where did these microbes come from? The volcano was extremely isolated and far away from any other place where similar microbes might be, and according to the research team, the microbes basically come out of nowhere. They believe that these microbes are always present in the water, but at such low levels they can't be detected. Then, when opportunity presents itself, the microbes explode in numbers. This goes to show that there is still an entire world that we don't quite understand. Number 3. Volcano shrimp. How would you like to eat some tasty volcano shrimp? Back in 2009, a group of oceanographers paid a visit to an active underwater volcano near Guam known as NW Rota 1. I know, it's a pretty lame name for a volcano, but the volcano itself is pretty interesting. It's constantly active and one of the only submarine volcanoes that scientists have witnessed erupting. It's just erupting all of the time, like it's got a bad case of gas. But what also makes this volcano very unique is that it's home to a bunch of unusual creatures, including the volcano shrimp. The shrimp appear to have adapted to living life on the side of an ever-growing volcano. They are known as lohi shrimp, and they survive by grazing the bacterial filaments with their tiny claws. They stroll up and down the newly developed rock, feasting on tiny little filaments until they grow into their adult stage, at which point the shrimp become fierce predators. But it's a game of chance. The bacteria on the side of the volcano grows extremely fast, so there's always a food source, but the shrimp are constantly struggling to avoid volcanic eruptions. Every time there is a volcanic burst, you can witness massive clouds of these bright pink shrimp fleeing through the ocean. And when that happens, they get attacked by other marine life. But other marine life isn't so suited to these kinds of waters. When squid and other fish try to attack the shrimp too close to the volcano, they get a big blast of noxious gas and drop dead to the bottom of the ocean, where their corpses can then be feasted on by the shrimp. Number 2. Giant pink slugs. Let's move from small pink shrimp to giant pink slugs. This is something known as the Mount Capitar pink slug, and it's about as cute as any other slug. It has an extremely red colour that makes it look pink. Actually, it almost looks like if a tube of lipstick melted and then came back to life. But even though this is one of the most flamboyant slugs in the world, they live a pretty relaxed lifestyle. This is because they're stuck over 3,000 feet up on the sides of an ancient volcano in Australia. The volcano is named Narrabri, and it's located in the state of New South Wales. So, what do these giant slugs do all day on the volcano? The answer is not much. They sometimes slide out from their rocky hiding spots and slowly inch up rocks or up tree trunks where they feed on eucalyptus, lichen, algae and fungi. But they only do it at night. When the day rolls around, these giant pink slugs retreat back into their hiding spots and wait for the next chance to feed. It's believed that the slugs managed to survive the brutal fires in the national park in 2019 thanks to their hiding abilities. While the fire raged, the giant pink slugs were very deep under the rocks and 3,000 feet up. That's a pretty good defense mechanism if you ask me. And speaking of the fires in Australia, scientists are having a bit of a difficult time trying to figure out how many of these giant pink slugs are left, as they are so elusive. Much wildlife has been destroyed, and scientists are trying to figure out who's left and how many there are. Another very elusive species that scientists can't track very well is the platypus. But the platypus doesn't live on a volcano. Number 1. Giant rat. Just a few years ago, there was a new species of rat discovered living in the crater of a volcano in the country of Papua New Guinea. The discovery was made by a biologist working with the Natural History Unit of the BBC. And while the volcano in which the giant rat was found is technically extinct, it's still a volcano. The crater is about 2.5 miles wide with giant walls about half a mile tall. This big hole in the ground has trapped a whole ecosystem of creatures inside a world of their own. It's basically a bowl where all kinds of cool critters have been able to evolve in peace. This has been helped by the fact that humans very rarely enter the area. The first to sight the new giant rat was a tracker from a nearby indigenous tribe. A local biologist was then informed, and eventually the BBC showed up with their cameras. And yeah, this is one weird rat. It is gigantic. It weighs almost 4 pounds and measures almost 3 feet from nose to tail. It's being called the Bosavi woolly rat, and it's one of the largest in the entire world. Even stranger is that the rat was almost completely tame when it was found. This is a sign that animals inside the isolated volcanic crater were completely unfamiliar with humans. Because they never met humans before, they had no reason to be afraid of them. But that will probably change pretty quickly. Number 10. Sabertoothed deer. Everyone has heard of the saber-toothed tiger, but have you ever heard of the saber-toothed deer? It looks like a bloodthirsty deer that you would find stalking around in your yard waiting to bite your leg off, but it's not. These saber-toothed deer are actually docile herbivores. And even though they are part of the musk deer family, they aren't deer. They don't have antlers. Instead, they have evolved very intense canines that are actually tusks. They have tusks just like an elephant or a boar, but only the males do, and they use them to fight off rival males once mating season comes around. And while you think they might use their long tusks to impress the ladies, they don't. The male saber-toothed deer has an unusual gland located near its hindquarters. According to Mental Floss, the gland can secrete a pungent chemical all throughout the animal's territory. And while humans find the smell to be absolutely disgusting, female musk deer find it tantalizing. It's true, animals and their pheromones are quite frankly gross. Imagine excreting offensive odours all over the forest to try and attract your mate. Number 9. Sea turtle. This one is absolutely shocking. To look at the photo of the inside of this creature's mouth, you would never believe what it is. The mouth is full of what appear to be sharp spikes. It looks like a cave of death, but it's actually just a sea turtle. A perfectly ordinary sea turtle, which some people might find super adorable. It just so happens to have a jagged hole of death and destruction inside its mouth. Sea turtles have hundreds of giant spikes that they use for teeth, with a little leather tongue at the bottom. It's really a mouth unlike any other in the animal kingdom. Who needs jaws or rows of teeth when you can have spikes all along the roof of your mouth and going down into your throat? I would hate to be the animal that gets trapped in there. The leatherback sea turtle is the largest living turtle in the world and the third largest living reptile. They begin life as tiny little babies flapping across the sand and over the years grow to be around 6 feet in length. In one day, the leatherback sea turtle will eat around 73% of its body weight in jellyfish. It snacks on jellyfish like you or I might binge on chips or ice cream. But the key to understanding the mouth of the sea turtle is that those spikes aren't technically teeth at all. All those spikes inside of its mouth are known as papillae, and they go all the way down its esophagus and into its gut. Can you guess what they're used for? Yeah, for eating jellyfish. The spikes help prevent the jellyfish from floating back out of the turtle's mouth. All those little spikes force the jellyfish down into the belly of the turtle. This is probably the coolest, yet the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. Number 8. Goosanda. The Goosanda is the one duck you don't ever want to bite you. While they may look innocent and peaceful, take a look inside its mouth. The Goosanda has a long and narrow bill filled with saw-like teeth. The teeth are made for gripping fish, but don't think the Goosanda won't take a bite out of your hand if you get too close with that loaf of bread. The name Goosanda is actually Welsh and translates to serrated duck. According to the Scottish Wildlife Trust, these ducks first colonised Scotland in 1871 and have since become pretty standard all across the United Kingdom. The Goosanda isn't actually dangerous, but it's a little unnerving to look into the mouth of a tiny duck to see rows of razor blades staring back at you. Since when did birds grow teeth? How is it fair to have a beak and teeth? Did you know about the Goosanda? I didn't. What do you think of it? It seems more dangerous than the normal wild ducks we see around our neighbourhoods. What would the world be like if all ducks had razor-sharp teeth in their bills? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But first, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so you can catch all the amazing videos you might have missed. Number 7. Camels. One of the most terrifying mouths in the entire animal world belongs to the camel. Have you ever looked in a camel's face? They have yellow, snaggled teeth. They are always gurgling and spitting. It looks like every camel is born with a terrifying case of gingivitis. Not only do they have some of the worst teeth out of any animal, but they are also aggressive, mean, and dangerous. Nothing showcases the terror of what a camel can do with its teeth quite like the incident reported by The Independent back in 2016, when a camel bit its owner's head clean off. This happened in the Indian state of Rajasthan during a heatwave. Temperatures reached an outstanding 109 degrees Fahrenheit. The owner of the camel tied the animal up, left it there with its legs bound all day in the blistering sun, and in the evening when the man remembered to untie the camel lunged and literally bit his head all the way off. The camel lifted the man by his neck and flung him like a doll. Well, like a headless doll. In any case, camels have some scary teeth. But it's really their awful attitude that makes them even more terrifying than any other animal, no matter how big the teeth. I personally prefer horses, but camels are significantly better equipped for the desert. Number 6. Gelada Baboon. If you have ever come face to face with a baboon, you will know how terrifying its teeth are. This is particularly true with the Gelada Baboon from the mountains of Ethiopia. They live in the Simien Mountains and mostly hang out eating grass. But it makes you wonder why a primate that eats grass has canine teeth the same size as that of a lion. They are absolutely horrifying. A single bite from one of these baboons would be like sticking an ice pick through your hand. The male baboons actually yawn to show off their huge teeth to other males. This is typically done to show which baboon is dominant, and it's done before feeding at any time when it gets a little too tense among the group. But wait, these ferocious baboons have an entire communication system dependent on yawning. Researchers aren't exactly sure what all the yawns mean, but the baboons appear to communicate friendly interactions by yawning, and they appear to synchronize whatever activity they're doing by spreading their yawns throughout the group. They signal the quality of their relationship by yawning, they let the others know who is in charge by yawning, and they let each other know who is friends with whom. It's pretty bizarre, like a secret yawning sign language only displayed by these special baboons. Number 5. The chainsaw shark. The helicoprion was one of the most savage fish that's ever lived. Mind you, it was around 270 million years ago. The helicoprion has been extinct for quite some time, but it still deserves a prominent spot on the list for its freaky teeth. There is no other animal like it. The helicoprion literally had a buzzsaw in its mouth. It's hard to even describe the terrifying teeth that this prehistoric ratfish had. Just looking at the fossils is boggling. It had something known as a tooth whirl, and it was used just like a saw. The teeth pulled prey deeper into its mouth, while other teeth pierced and cut, and even more teeth hooked additional prey and dragged even more into its mouth. Its teeth were almost like a conveyor belt. Imagine having a circular set of spinning teeth inside your mouth. I mean, how did this even happen? According to an article from Men's Journal, the helicoprine mostly fed on cephalopods, ancient squid and octopus, and its teeth were specially designed for shocking the cephalopods to eat them more easily. There has been no other creature ever discovered with this kind of mouth. It's a one-of-a-kind evolutionary feature. Number 4. Hagfish. Let's take a look at the hagfish for a minute. This is arguably the most disgusting animal in the ocean. It looks kind of like an eel, or maybe like a long pink worm. It even kind of looks like a discarded tentacle. It comes equipped with 4 sensory mechanisms around its mouth that help it to find food, but where this thing gets really weird is when it finds food. The hagfish drills into its victim like some kind of parasitic worm. Even though the hagfish doesn't have jaws, it has 2 rows of structures in its mouth with rows of tooth-like points made of something known as keratin, which it uses to burrow inside its prey's carcass. They are also able to bite off huge chunks of food while they feast on carrion or live prey. But it's the appearance of their teeth that is so terrifying. Its face just kind of splits open like a disturbing vampire from a horror movie, revealing monstrous teeth powerful enough to actually dig into an animal's skin so it can eat the flesh from its inside out. Number 3. Penguins. Penguins are one of the most unique animals in the world. They are birds, but they swim, and even though they swim, they mostly live on land. They waddle around all day in tuxedo-coloured fur, squawking and laying eggs. They are extremely strange, and according to the Smithsonian Magazine, there are between 17 and 20 different species of penguin living on the planet today. But what you might not know is that inside the mouth of a penguin is a terrifying death trap. Penguins are not friendly animals, and they're not actually that cute when you get close to one. Penguins are carnivores and feast on fish, crabs, squid, and anything else they can catch, and they do this with a grotesque set of teeth. Well, they don't actually have teeth, but they do have fleshy spines that line in the inside of their mouth to help guide their food down their throat. But if you look closely, the fleshy spines really look like a solid block of sharp teeth in the middle of its beak. While penguins definitely aren't very threatening, take a look inside a dirty penguin mouth and try not to shriek in horror. Number 2. The Paku. The Paku is creepier than it is terrifying. It actually makes me a little uncomfortable to look at the pictures of this South American freshwater fish. It's typically found in rivers and streams in the Amazon, but they have been found as far east as Papua New Guinea. But we're not here to talk about where the Paku lives. We're here to talk about its human teeth. That's right, the Paku has a set of teeth on it that looks exactly like my own teeth, only straighter and a little cleaner. And even though the Paku is related to the piranha, they are worlds apart. The piranha is carnivorous, but the Paku is an omnivore and mostly eats vegetation. And while the piranha have very sharp teeth, Paku have square, straight teeth that look exactly like ours. They use their teeth to crush nuts and fruits, and sometimes to eat other fish. Sound familiar? The Paku's favourite foods are fruits and nuts that fall from trees and into the rivers of the Amazon. There are even some reports that Paku have accidentally attacked the gonads of male swimmers because they mistook them for food in the water. The Paku actually earned the nickname ball cutter after rumours that it had castrated some local fishermen in Papua New Guinea. These are so far just rumours, but the nickname has stuck, and it's better to be safe and enter the water with a swimsuit than sorry. Number 1. Human babies. The most terrifying teeth in the world belong to an animal that doesn't even have teeth in its mouth. Of course, I'm talking about the human baby. While on the outside, a human baby may look like an adorable little angel, but beneath the skin is something so terrifying you will scream when you see it. Before we lose our baby teeth, where do you think all those other teeth are kept? They are stored inside of our jaws, above and below the other teeth. The appearance turns into something very unsettling, with multiple rows of teeth just hanging out inside the skull. If you look at an X-ray or a skull of a child before losing its baby teeth, you wouldn't even think it was human. It doesn't look natural, and it's actually given me nightmares ever since I first discovered it. So, I thought I would share my horrifying revelation of the human body with all of you. Enjoy the creepy images of all our weird teeth. Number 10. Gorillas save lives. Gorillas may look big and mean, and some of them definitely are. But an incident back in 1996 showed that some gorillas have compassion even for humans. It all happened when a 3-year-old boy fell into the gorilla enclosure at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. The child fell 20 feet to the ground and was knocked unconscious. Then, a female gorilla named Binti Jua whose name means daughter of sunshine, picked the child up and protected him from the other animals. She did this while carrying her own infant on her back. This was a dramatic show of maternal care, as the mother gorilla actually carried the small boy all the way to the entrance, where staff could safely get him out of the enclosure. Because this happened back in 1996, there is obviously no viral footage of it. However, it was captured on home video. Fast forward 20 years, and this same gorilla is still living in the Brookfield Zoo, according to the Daily Mail. And the daughter of that gorilla who had been clinging to her mother's back during the dramatic rescue now has a daughter of her own. As for the boy, in 1996 he had spent 4 days in the hospital, but was later released, no worse for wear. This gorilla story was republished recently after the incident in the Cincinnati Zoo, when another young boy climbed up the barrier, crawled through the bushes, and fell into the gorilla enclosure there. In this recent incident, video footage shows the gorilla in the enclosure dragging the child by their ankle while people screamed and shouted. Of course, in the incident, the gorilla was Harambe, and the zoo response team actually shot the gorilla and killed it to protect the small child. What do you think of their response? There is still controversy today about whether the zookeepers were correct to shoot Harambe to save the small child. Let me know your opinion in the comments below. Then, be sure to subscribe if you like this video, since there are more coming soon, and you won't want to miss them. Number 9. Mila the beluga whale. Saviors come in all shapes and sizes. Even a whale can save the day. Take the story of Mila the beluga whale, who saved a diver from certain death just recently. A young woman was in the middle of a freediving contest when disaster struck. She had no breathing equipment and had dived down more than 20 feet into extremely cold Arctic waters. Then, when the woman tried to return to the surface, the freezing cold from the water had crippled her. She couldn't kick off with her legs and was in immediate danger of drowning. This is when Mila the beluga whale came to the rescue. It was as if the whale could actually sense that the woman was paralyzed and in danger. The beluga whale quickly swam up, grabbed the woman by the leg with her mouth, and pushed her all the way to the surface of the pool. According to an official from the scene, Mila the whale is a very sensitive animal and often works closely with humans. Judging by this incredible act of compassion, I would say beluga whales are much more in tune than people give them credit for. And for that matter, it seems like animals of any species are still able to transmit some degree of empathy to each other. If whales were dumb, Mila would have simply watched the woman drown and then maybe eaten her, but instead she saved her. Number 8. Lucky pig. Everyone needs a lucky pig. Not only are pigs adorable and super smart, but some pigs save lives. Take the heroic pig named Lucky that saved its family from a devastating fire. This happened after a fire broke out in the family's mobile home early on a Sunday morning. The pig didn't really do anything extraordinary. According to the family, Lucky normally woke them up in the morning, but when the fire broke out at around 4:40 AM, the pig woke the family up by squealing and running around. Apparently, the pig began to scream. He was jumping up and down and running to the door, then running back into the room with the family in it and hitting them really hard to try and wake them up. Finally, the pig managed to wake up the woman of the house, who immediately realized that her whole room was full of smoke. A few minutes later, and the woman had gotten her 2 grandchildren out of the house, along with Lucky the pig, and firefighters were able to arrive and quickly douse the flames. It's true that these people lost their home and everything inside got burnt to cinders, but at least everyone is alive. And it's all thanks to their beloved pig. The pig probably could have run off and saved its own bacon, but it was heroic and made sure it woke the whole family up so they could get out too. And this isn't the only story of pigs saving lives. They might be up there with dogs in terms of being loyal pets. Number 7. Rescue rabbit. A rabbit is probably the most unlikely hero ever. Nobody would ever expect a tiny little rabbit to save anyone's life. However, according to a story from the BBC, one man's rabbit saved him from a coma. The man's name is Simon, and he comes from the UK. As far as the story goes, Simon passed out while watching television because of a diabetic attack. Lucky, he had been watching TV with his pet rabbit. When Simon fainted, the rabbit jumped onto the couch and began to thump furiously on his chest, as if she knew how to give him CPR. Because of the rabbit's strange behaviour, the man's wife suddenly noticed something was wrong and was able to quickly call an ambulance. The woman told local news that she was actually embarrassed that the rabbit knew her husband was slipping into a coma before she did. Apparently, the rabbit does live in the house but is not allowed on the furniture. But when Simon passed out, the rabbit threw the rules out of the window and jumped onto the furniture to begin thumping on his chest. Because of this quick action, the man's wife saw what was happening and phoned the ambulance. It could very well be that this little rabbit saved the man's life. This is pretty incredible considering the couple had only had the rabbit, whose name is Dory by the way, for 3 months when the incident occurred. Number 6. The Parrot Savior. We are getting all kind of strange animal saviors today. Next on our list is a parrot who had been honoured by the Red Cross for saving a toddler's life. This all happened during breakfast one morning in November. Everyone was having dinner when the parrot began screaming, "Mama, baby," over and over again. Apparently, the toddler at the dinner table had started to choke on their food. It was in a brief window of time in which the mother had left the room just for a second. To notify the mother of what was happening, the parrot raised the alarm. It flapped its wings and screamed in actual words, "Mama, baby," and this caused the mother to rush back into the room just in time to find the toddler turning blue from choking. The Heimlich maneuver was quickly applied and the toddler was saved. If it hadn't been for the parrot, who knows how it would have turned out in the end. But because this parrot is obviously a real-life hero, the toddler still lives. The Animal Lifesaver Award ceremony was held by the Red Cross in Denver, in which the parrot was the guest of honour. Number 5. The dogs from 9/11. The biggest heroes on the list for today are the 9/11 rescue dogs, most of which were Labradors and Golden Retrievers. All the first responders from that day are heroes, and so are the roughly 100 search and rescue dogs who scoured Ground Zero for survivors. But out of all 100 of those dogs, in 2011 there were only 12 of them left. On that fateful day, the dogs worked tirelessly to find as many people as they could trapped alive beneath the rubble. The story of these fantastic animals has since been compiled into a book called Retrieved, in which the story of these four-legged heroes is told through photographs and memories. And the photographs are absolutely stunning. It's a collection of stories and first-hand accounts of that day, along with striking images of the brave pups who were back then in their twilight years, long since retired. Unfortunately, since it's been around 20 years since the attack, the remaining rescue dogs are long gone. But their memories live on through portraits and the people that they saved, as well as in the memories of their owners and friends. Number 4. Goat saves family. Say what you want about goats, but they are way smarter than we give them credit for. Goats are fun, sprightly, and very loyal pets. A young girl, only 10 years old, was given a pet goat for her birthday. Her father was not super excited about it, but since the goat went on to save the life of everyone in the family, the father's outlook has changed. The girl named her goat Speedy, and only 2 days after Speedy arrived in their home in Arkansas, it proved itself to be a real hero. This happened while the young girl was sleeping in the living room with the goat. Suddenly, Speedy woke her up out of nowhere by jumping all over her and acting crazy. Then, the little girl noticed smoke. She ran to her parents' bedroom but could hardly see or breathe through all the thick smoke. There was actually fire coming in from outside of the windows. It turned out that the garage was on fire and the whole house was burning. The girl managed to wake up her parents, and the entire family scrambled out from an open window and made it onto the front lawn. According to the news reports from Huffington Post, the fire department showed up very soon and extinguished the fire. While everything in the house was obviously destroyed, the family was completely okay, and it was all thanks to their goat. You might say that Speedy made a speedy decision that saved the lives of everyone in his new family, and only 2 days after he arrived. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. Number 3. Dog defeats snake. Dobermans are great dogs. They can be vicious, they can be sweet, and they can be fiercely protective. If you ever want a dog that can protect you and your family, you definitely want a Doberman. There is no better example of this than a story from a few years back, when a Doberman saved a toddler from a deadly snake attack. This happened in Australia, near the city of Cairns. The child was only 17 months old when she was playing in the garden of her home. It was while she was playing that the small child came face to face with the king brown snake, the third most venomous snake in the world. As you can imagine, this would not have ended well for the child. The snake was primed and ready to strike. And that was when the Doberman jumped into action. The Doberman's name is Khan, and he saved the child's life by literally snatching her in his jaws and throwing her over his shoulder like a doll. And he did it just in time. The snake lashed out, missed the child, and Khan the Doberman was bitten instead. Luckily, the family got the dog to the vet just in time. Anti-venom was given to the dog, and I'm happy to say that Khan made a full recovery. The family is now calling him Khan the Wonder Dog. Number 2. Compassionate baby elephant. It's not every day a baby elephant saves your life, especially when your life isn't in danger. This story comes to us from the Save Elephant Foundation in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Derek Thompson, the co-founder of the entire foundation, was splashing around in the water and called out to the baby elephant, whose name is Kam La, when the elephant misinterpreted the calls as cries of distress. The baby elephant charged into the water, sheltered the man with her body, and used her trunk to safely get Derek out of the water. Of course, Derek wasn't actually drowning, but the rescue attempt was not in vain. It just goes to show how much love the little elephant had for that man. So far as protectors go, you can't really do much better than having your own personal guardian elephant. According to CNN, Derek actually helped rescue Kamla and her mother back in 2015. You might say the baby elephant now owes the man a life debt. Since the incident, the man and the elephant have developed quite the amazing bond. He has been accepted into the herd. The foundation has so far rescued over 70 elephants, which are currently roaming free around the park. Number 1. Stray cat saves baby. We often credit dogs with being heroic, but what about cats? Cats may be kind of aloof, and oftentimes rude, but this story out of Russia shows that cats can be heroes too. The story begins pretty tragically. A newborn baby was abandoned inside a box and left to die in the hallway of an apartment building. Someone literally just left their baby in a box. And because of the freezing cold, the baby would have undoubtedly frozen to death. A stray cat named Marsha then came along out of nowhere, climbed into the box with the freezing infant and kept the child warm for hours until somebody came along and found them. Residents in the block of apartments eventually came upon the poor baby curled up with the cat in the box after being alerted by the baby's crying. According to the locals, they found the cat licking the baby's face and trying to keep him warm. Luckily, the baby had only been outside for a few hours, and thanks to the cat, he was not damaged by the unfortunate experience. The baby was taken away in an ambulance and checked over at the hospital by medics. Since the incident, the cat has become royalty and is treated with reverence by the residents of the nearby apartment buildings. Police launched a search to try and find the identities of the baby's parents, but as of 2015, no leads were made. Let's just be thankful that the warm cat came along when it did. Do you know any stories of humans being saved by an animal? If so, sound off in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and come back soon for more fun videos. Have you ever saved an animal, be it an insect, a mammal, or any other type? Tell us about it.